Hey, good morning, everyone. We'd like to get started now. Nope, still some more coming in. Okay, my name is Steve Dolan. I have an MPS from the ILR school. And actually, what I'm more proud of is the fact that my son is a junior at Cornell now. So, yes, thank you. He's in CALC. He's a food science major and a business minor and loving it. He's a junior. I'm a volunteer on the Volunteer Leadership Development Committee, and I'm excited to introduce our speaker for our first session on volunteer leadership competencies. Reginald White, we're really fortunate to have Reginald with us. He's a senior management consultant at Cornell University, and you've been in that role for?
Just a year.
Just over a year. And actually, it's been, I can tell you personally, it's been such a pleasure working with Reginald. I'm very confident he'll do a fantastic job for us. So he's responsible for leading and managing the design, development, implementation of university-wide training, development, and executive coaching initiatives. He consults and designs in the areas of university culture change, diversity and inclusion, planning and prioritization, leadership and management development, and executive coaching. Prior to joining Cornell, he held a number of exciting roles, and just prior to joining Cornell, he was the president of Turan Enterprises that specialized in executive coaching, diversity, and leadership development. And some of this work he did for multinational companies on a global basis. Prior to that, he was with Merrill Lynch as the vice president and divisional marketing manager. And before joining Merrill Lynch, he spent a number of years at Fidelity Investments in various roles, including vice president of marketing, internal management consultant, and vice president of human resources. Relative to his volunteer activities at Cornell, he also has a very stellar record. He is an active Cornell alum, currently serving as the president of Human Ecology Alumni Board and member of the Cornell Council. He received his BS in psychology at Cornell and his executive MBA at Boston University. So please join me in welcoming Reginald Harris this morning.
Good morning. So it's so funny. My middle name is Harris, and there's another Reginald White who graduated from Cornell, and so my name shows up as Reginald Harris White, and so sometimes people think, Harris must be your real name or your last name. I'm like, no, that's not my last name. It's White. Harris is my middle name. So anyway, pleasure to be here. It's exciting. How many of you, as we start to talk about this, how many of you were in the session yesterday with the president of the Philadelphia Zoo? Everybody. So I had not planned to talk about him, but I felt that his conversation, the way in which he presented who he is and his connection to Cornell and his relationship with his father, one of my personal favorite moments, Jim Baza crying, whoa, that was, right? I mean, it was powerful. And so what do you think, what was it about that presentation? What made it a moment where people felt like they had to cry?
It felt authentic.
It felt authentic? Okay. What else? Yes?
It felt courageously vulnerable, speaking from his heart, just honoring something that really inspired him. And
Yeah.
It just makes you think about your own father.
Yes. So I suspect that Jim and others who were crying were not crying because of, is it Vic, I think his name was? They weren't crying because of Vic's father, right? They were crying because it reminded them of their own father or something in their life that mattered. Yes? He was inspiring. Yes, he was inspiring. There was a level of real, authentic compassion. I love the questions, right? As a father, right, I do not wake my children up in the middle of the night and have conversations with them that would drive them crazy, my wife crazy, so we don't do that, right? But on the other hand, right, there's something wonderful about the conversation which said, what are you going to do to make the world a better place? And how are you going to be better each day than you were the previous day? At the core level, that's what this is about. So when Steve talked about this sort of idea that we've come up with these volunteer competencies. What we've observed is that the best volunteers, the people who decide, like you, who decide that they want to give their extra time the time outside of their family, their time outside of their jobs, their time outside of everything else they want to give to Cornell. The question is why? And it's because on some level, they're inspired. You're inspired. So we think that's foundational, right? If there is no inspiration, you do the other things in your life. If you're not touched, moved, and inspired by your experience, why do this? Yes? So what I want to do in this sort of next piece of the conversation is to have you focus on what is inspiration for you? Where did it come from? Because at the end of the day, inspiration is a personal decision. We were all inspired. Most of us were inspired by the presentation, but we're inspired for our own personal reasons. So for me personally, one of the ways that I got acquainted with this sort of idea, when I first became a volunteer at Cornell, probably about 15 years ago, I first started doing CAN interviews. And so I'd interview these high school students who wanted to be Cornell students. And people would tell me their stories about why they wanted to be Cornell students. One of my personal favorites was a young man whose family came from a rural part of North Carolina. His mother had no idea that she could be a Cornell student. A guidance counselor or someone introduced her to the idea. She had actually never even heard of Cornell. And he convinced her that this was a reasonable thing to do. She applied, she got in, and she told the story to her son, similar to the story that Vic's father told him, that this changed her life, that it fundamentally altered her life, that she loved the experience, that she got a vision of who she could be that was completely different than what she had imagined, different than anything that she had seen in her family, and it changed her life. And he wanted to be part of that legacy. Was I inspired? Yes. Right? Was I happy to be the person who was sitting in front of him, sharing that in fact it was possible for him to change his life as well? Yes. Was I touched by the idea that in fact something at Cornell had changed someone else's life in the same way it had changed mine? Yes. I wanted to do that. I wanted to keep having that conversation. Incidentally, he did get in, yes. Right? I was excited for him in that space, right? So in this space, right, there is a level at which, in order for you to keep doing what you do, you have to touch that space in you that is inspiration, or else why do it? So here's the first part of this exercise, process for this hour. I want you at your tables to have a conversation about answers to two questions. First, what inspires you? And who inspires you? What inspires you? And who inspires you? Questions? That's right, you have a lifetime. No. So we'll take about 5 minutes or so. So it's a quick conversation. What inspires you and who inspires you? Yes. Right. Because the reason. So let me just be clear about why I answered the question that way. Right. Because the truth is that there are not a number of you that are split in terms of your personality. So what inspires you, who would have thought last night or yesterday when we were hearing Vic talk about what was going on, we weren't thinking about our parents, were we? No. Until Vic told the story about his father, and all of a sudden we remembered our fathers or our relationships or someone else in our lives who inspired us. So I don't believe that you sort of have a Cornell inspiration, you're one human being, and whatever inspires you, and you take that inspiration wherever you go. So I'm not making the distinction that it has to be within the Cornell context. What inspires you, and who inspires you? Nice to see a friendly face.
When I was thinking about that question, I think like making impact inspires me personally. So if I have
missed your name there. Oh my God.
It's all right. It's not a problem. You're not the first person to do that. That's why I did it. I was like, it's all right.
Cornell inspired my freshman year everyone together and provide for class and experience.
I'm inspired by artistic expression at once, so just seeing how people go about their lives watching.
Stood up and said, it's not okay. She's young and
some of us
All right, take one more minute.
Yeah, so what should
All right. You come back. Hello. See me, hear me in that sort of space, but I apologize. I don't have any control over that. I didn't build the room, so if I had made it, I would have done it differently. So I'm curious, what was that conversation like? Tell me some of the things that inspire you. Anybody, what inspires you? Yes?
Well, I think that one of the common threads that we had here, well, I think there were two things, but one of them was seeing somebody that kind of models what you would like to be, how you would like to be, and that kind of propels you to grow.
Yeah. There are mics here, yes. Yeah.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
So the theme that from our table was hi everybody.
That's right.
The theme was that we all had some sort of model of a person that we saw that modeled how we would like to be, and that propelled us to grow ourselves to become more like that person or like that example. And also there was an element of compassion or service to use that example to try to give more back to others. So I think the example setting, I think, was a really important theme here. So.
Got it. Thank you. Who else? What inspires you? Yes. Go right back there. Just back there.
One of the themes at our table, although not everybody agreed per se, but was around risk takers and people who, positive risk takers. There we go. But people who would defy odds for whatever it might be in life, and kind of set an example of being authentic.
Okay.
One of the themes here.
All right. Got one here.
I'm speaking for my table. We had a sort of themes of intelligence, like passionate intelligence,
Okay.
Compassion in general, profiles in courage, and as we were talking, and down to being inspired by children and just personal interactions with people that you don't yet know. But what did come out also was that we're feeling a lack of perhaps people to look forward to since the loss of Obama. Some people are saying, who are we looking to? And not as many that we used to see in the public in front of us.
All right. We got some back here. Yes? Okay.
So I guess what inspired me is, on a personal note, I was born and raised in Vietnam. So, okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. Good morning. So what inspired me personally is I was born and raised in Vietnam, and I moved here. And I was lucky enough to attend Cornell, an Ivy League school. And I think it's a country patriotism kind of thing, because when you go back and you're stuck between both worlds, you see, there's competent people over there, but it's a third world country where, the top 10 most Google searches like artists with catchy songs, and you look at the US, and it's kind of sad because, I don't know, these are good people, and because of certain things that related to government, to politics, that there's a brand trend, there's a war, and that is not where it's up to be. And then I was lucky enough to go to Ivy League, and that enabled me to open a whole new world. And I just want to bring that back to the people back home.
Yeah. Wonderful. You got someone here?
The table over there talked about risk takers.
Yes, positive risk takers.
Change makers, people making change, whether it was personal change in their lives through yoga, change in a culture that had stacked against them, women who had everything stacked against them, in finding a way to make change to create lives for themselves. personal change, change through nonprofits. So this is what our table, and we didn't really talk about this, but this is kind of what I walked away, that we're inspired by people who are making change and positive change in the world.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Anybody else? From way over the side, yes. We got two right here. You? There we go. Mike's there we go.
I thought there was a sense that self-sacrifice was inspirational. People who sacrificed self in a certain way to do things for others. That, I think, we found inspirational.
Got it, yes. Here, behind you, right behind you.
I guess there were three different themes that we talked about. One, people who are able to dispel with fear and just be courageous to do something different and new. Those are inspiring people. Those who are selfless, who do for others and don't worry about what they get back in return. And those who inspire you to be better than who you are.
Yes.
So people who come to you and you see what they do and they make you want to be a better person.
Yes, yes, yes. Got someone here?
Hello. We were talking about people who were thinking outside the box and just thought of ideas and did things that people hadn't thought of before and carried through on them. And we came up with a number of examples, from Jeff Bezos, founding Amazon, to Morris Dees, who formed the Southern Poverty Law Center, and also, who else do we? Yeah. And Steve Jobs and yeah.
We got a whole list, right?
We talked about Elon Musk and Steve Jobs as well.
All right. Yes, yes, yes. All right, we got one more over here.
Sure, good morning. So we'll take the theme concept a little further, and we talked about at our table, and it sort of evolved that, I guess it's actually this notion of servant leadership, which is something probably everybody's read about, but it's really those people who are in positions doing, serving others. So actually, I thought Fran brought up a couple of good examples. One was somebody we all know, which is the Pope, and what it is that he's doing in a very different way as the head of the Catholic Church that's very different than those who preceded him. And then the second was a person who we don't know, but she talked about a board or a doctor or a physician's assistant doing, work in places that we probably would never want to go, but really going, Sudan, helping others from a medical, and keep doing tours over and over again, elective to do that. So that's a notion of servant leadership.
Got it, got it, got it. Okay. So we got one more.
Our table, funny enough, didn't talk about who inspires us. It was really what inspires us. And
Yes.
the most telling one was a young engineer here who said, I want to know what to do with waste streams. Anytime somebody shows me a byproduct
Can you speak
or
closer into
something
the
that's
microphone,
left-
Lindsay? We can't hear you over here.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry. So we have a young engineer here who talked about waste streams. He said, I'm supposed to build things for what I do for a living, but I'm actually most inspired by the things that are left behind or that are a byproduct, because that's just free stuff. And there should be a way that to use that. And I think it just spoke to everything else we talked about. There was a lot of talk about why Cornell inspires us. Sort of touching on the student who was from Vietnam and then from Cornell. But more importantly, the quote was, I want to continue the benefit that I felt that I received when I was at Cornell.
Yes.
I hope I paraphrased that right. And to pass it on to the next generation.
That's a perfect way to end and move to the next section, right? Because the reason, so thank you for all of you who actually got a chance to share. So part of the reason why I did this was because I want you to hear from each other that inspiration comes in many different forms. What inspires me may not inspire you. Part of the work as a volunteer is to find in yourself that place, that thing that moves you, that allows you to focus on something bigger than yourself. One of the common themes, right, was this risk-taking, this sort of making a difference, making a change, doing something, being a model, moving out into the next generation. We do all these things because on some level they matter to us. The question for you as a volunteer is, what matters to you? And being able to access it at will is the difference between doing nothing and doing everything. Doing nothing and doing everything. Because once you're in it, for me, inspiration, to be in spirit, to be connected in this sort of space where I'm invincible, when I'm looking into the next generation, when I'm seeing something bigger than myself, when I'm taking a positive risk, I'm doing that because I feel invincible. And so I want you to feel invincible. I want you to know that you do make a difference. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. You took time out of your lives. This is Saturday, isn't it? We're supposed to be doing something, right? You are here. So I want you to feel good about that. So I want to shift for a second. How many of you got your pins that say know, feel, do? All right, so I want to talk a little bit about that concept, and then I want to introduce something else as well. So when you heard, I think it was Kevin McManus talked about yesterday, this sort of idea of know, feel, do, what do you think that means? What are you supposed to know? Your responsibilities? Your responsibilities. So know your responsibilities as a volunteer. Know what you can do. What else are you supposed to know? We gave you pins. It must mean something. The guardrails. Know the boundaries. Yes? Know what you can't do, know what you can do. That's the difference between positive risk-taking and negative risk-taking.
I think knowing what inspires you and then connecting that to what everybody else is saying is really the thing that's going to give you the energy to move forward actually into action.
Okay. What else? No. What else are you supposed to know? Yep. Know what's needed to make a positive impact. Yes. Anybody else? Okay. So then there's this feel part. I'm sorry. I heard. So your hand up here.
We need to know. We're alums. We need to know the current situation and what it's like on the ground in Cornell.
Yep. Need to know the situation, the current situation, what it's like to be on the ground. What are we supposed to feel? Compassion.
Feel what it was like to be in their shoes.
Feel what it's like to be in their shoes. Feel what else? What else are you supposed to feel? Back there I see a hand. Feel a commitment to Cornell? Yes?
Feel what you know you can do would be useful and helpful.
Okay. Feel empowered. Feel what you know what you can do. Yes? Feel inspired. He was a plant. He's a plant. Feel energy. Yes. Feel passion. What are you supposed to do with all that? The stuff you know and now you feel. What are you supposed to do with it? Act. Good stuff for Cornell. Right, so the reason, the idea behind this idea of know, feel, do is that it sets a context. It says that what you do, how you spend your energy, how you use your volunteer time, how you use the inspiration is towards something that matters for Cornell or anything else, some other organization not at Cornell that you do this work for. Today it's Cornell. But the idea is that it sets a context for you. It gives you the ability to sort of say, I know what it is we're supposed to be doing. I know what we're about. I know who our constituents are. I know what our work is. Someone mentioned, Steve mentioned in the introduction that I have the honor of being the president of the Human Ecology Alumni Board. and I have a few of my board members or previous board members here in the audience, so that's why we got applause. But in any event, I mean, part of our work, right, is that we know that we have service to the college, we have service to the students, and we have service to the university. We're clear that that's what we're about. That's why we exist. And when we have challenges and issues and opportunities, we're clear. We sort of use that as a guardrail. This is what we're doing. This idea of the next generation, when we interact with students, when we do work with students, we're clear that that's who we serve. And so that matters. Know, feel, do. Got it? All right. So, questions about it? All right. So I'm going to introduce you to a new one. This one you don't have a button for. Those of you on this side can't see it, so I'm just going to tell you about it. So it's something, this is MAP. So if you've got a piece of paper or something, you can write this down. So here's what we know. This work is from Daniel Pink. And one of the things he observed is a sort of idea of sort of how do people get from the place of just sort of being inspired, they know, feel, do, how do they move to the space where they keep doing and keep sort of having that be a circular process for them. So the first piece is mastery. That is that people do what they do in the context of being a volunteer in part because they believe in the doing of it, they will develop some level of mastery. That is that they'll know how to do something today that they didn't know how to do yesterday. So back to our speaker, whose father told him that there were two questions that he needed to ask himself. How are you making the world a better place? And how are you becoming better than you were yesterday? That's mastery. The next piece is this idea of autonomy. That is that people need to feel like they have the autonomy to do the task that's in front of them. So sometimes when we do this, we work with people as volunteers, we lose sight of the idea that people need autonomy. In my board, and again, I'm very proud of my board, we do a lot of interesting work. One of the things that works for us in terms of our leadership team is when people say, they raise their hand and go, oh, I got a great idea. I want to make the world a better place by doing this. And we go, yeah, that's wonderful. You go do that. You seem so passionate about that. You should make that happen. We give them the autonomy to do it. We say, that idea sounds wonderful, and you seem like you're on fire to make that happen. Why would you want to pass that on to somebody else? Go do it. Right? So we give them the opportunity for autonomy. And then this last piece matters as well. This sort of idea that we're doing something for a purpose bigger than ourselves. So people feel, when they want to feel like there's something that matters, that the reason that they got up, that they used extra time is for a purpose bigger than themselves. That's what people keep coming back for. The reason why you're here, I suspect, the reason I'm here is because when I'm in a room with you, I feel the purpose. I feel inspired. I feel like we're doing something really extraordinary. And I'm proud to be part of it. Are you? Yes, right? And so as a person who is a volunteer and who will move from being just a volunteer to being a volunteer leader, these three things, so the know, feel, do is how you manage you. Creating a context where the people who you're working with have the opportunity for these three things is what will keep them motivated, will keep them inspired. If we don't give people the opportunity to develop mastery, if we don't give people the opportunity to have some autonomy in what they do, they could just go to work. Right? They could just go to work. They could get mastery at work. They could get autonomy at work. They don't need to volunteer with us. They don't need to be engaged with us. And if the purpose, the thing that we're doing, isn't bigger than us as individuals, why waste your life doing it? There are so many other things we could do. So the purpose really becomes critical. Again, we're focused, as my board, we're very much focused on the college, the students, the alumni who we serve, and the university. We're clear it's bigger than us. Are you clear it's bigger than you? Yes. And when you come to these things on an annual basis, can't you see it's bigger? It's bigger. You listen to the students. We listen to the students talk about their lives, and we're touched, right? We're like, we remember when we were students. We remember when we wanted to be something different than what we were as 19, 20, 21-year-olds. And we remember that Cornell helped us become that thing. It's bigger than us. So this space of mastery, autonomy, and purpose, again, creates a context in order for people to be successful. So I want you to be successful, but I want the other people who are standing next to you, who have joined you in purpose and joined you in whatever organization you're part of. I want them to feel like they're inspired and they can do something wonderful. And that you've created a context for them to do that. Because, again, if they don't have that, then why show up? It's really that simple. Questions about this? Relatively new concept, but questions. Does it make sense? Yes.
Can you give a good example of mastery? I think the autonomy and the purpose make really good sense to me.
Uh-huh.
Like, let's say you wanted to provide leadership on mastery. Like, what's a good example of that?
Yes. So let's think about, remember I said, yes, sorry. Question, what is mastery? Can you give me an example of mastery? So remember I said on my board, we have people who raise their hands and they say, oh, I want to do this. I want to make that happen. I want to change the world by doing that. We often ask the question, do you know how to do it now? Well, no, I don't know really how to do it, but I got this idea. I got a glimpse of something that could be that doesn't exist today, that we could do it better. And one example is someone in the audience, I won't use the name, but anyway, we had communications as an issue. So this person raised their hand and they said, communications, we don't do communications well. We could do it better. We said, well, okay, but we're doing it. They're like, no, but I have an idea that we could do it better. We said, well, we don't actually know how that looks. Do you? They said, well, I got an idea. I got some ideas about it. Why don't I go off and do some work to actually figure out how to make that happen? And so they came back to us on a regular basis. We said, yes, you can have a committee. You can be the head of that committee. You can make that thing happen. And so over time, right, they came back to us and they'd say, well, here's the idea. Here's what I see right now. What do you guys think? And each time, each iteration, right, we actually, each of us, a whole group, developed some mastery in understanding how to communicate better. The fundamental thing about that example is that it was because of that conversation and the series of conversations that we had that a couple of years later, when it actually, some confluence of things happened where a shift in leadership happened and people started asking us questions about what we were doing and how we were doing it, we were prepared for that because in this person's sort of interest, they brought the whole board along in terms of thinking about how we communicate more effectively. And so now we have a monthly opportunity in our alumni magazine. We have the ability to write letters and talk about what we do, but it was because of that conversation, this person's interest in sort of saying, I don't really know how to do it better yet, but I have a fundamental belief that it can be done better, and their willingness to show up each time we met with more information and more information to get to the space where there was mastery. Now, are we 100%? Are we done? No. But we've moved from where we were because of the inquiry. Yes?
Isn't this also a great selling point, not only for young alums and those alums that are traversing up the career ladder, that within the volunteer community, you have an opportunity to test skills that you want to master, and that's a great story to tell when you're interviewing for the next job.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's another point that we really need to hit home, especially with the young ones, for them to get involved early on.
Yes. So there is this opportunity, right, in this context to develop new skills, to try out new ideas, to develop, again, some mastery in things that matter to us that we're interested in. See a couple of hands, yes?
Another good example may be learning how to most optimally participate in CAN meetings.
Yes.
Writing a good CAN summary after your meeting with the student, how to arrange it. I'm still learning after many years. We won't say how many.
It's all good. You're
5.
in a group of friends. 5.
Doing interviews, I'm still learning and running into new situations as the generations change, as things change in the high schools, et cetera. So it's a great learning opportunity, but that's something I think we all strive to master.
Yes, yes. I saw another hand somewhere in this area. No? Yes, you see it back there? No? Yes,
If
go
I
ahead.
could add something to your question. So we have a full competency model. There are about 12 or 13 competencies. And to your point, it's for alumni and young alumni to develop this. That is our intent over the coming years, more sessions like this where people can develop and think about that, both from a workplace perspective as well as a volunteer perspective, to build those competencies and capabilities to advance their careers and their effectiveness as a volunteer leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, here.
So I have a question about, from a volunteer leader perspective, how can you inspire people? I think you touched on it a little bit in Mastery, but like the idea of not limiting but focusing a scope of a project, maybe saying like, okay, why don't we prioritize these things, and like doing it in such a way that you inspire people to really hone in what they're doing and figure out what they need to dedicate resources to, without making it sound like, oh, well, I'm trying to limit, what you're trying to do.
Yeah, so everybody heard the question, like, how do you do it? Really, in essence, that's the question. So, in my opinion, even though I made this map, for me, as I listened to the conversation and the answers to the question around, so what inspires you? I heard purpose. So I think if you start with purpose, if you start with the clarity around who are we and what do we want to do and where are we going, that helps to then create the context, the structure to keep people inspired. Here's the magic about this. We don't inspire other people. We do what we do when other people choose to be inspired by it. We don't inspire other people. We do what we do when other people choose to be inspired by that. Do you think that Vic meant for us to cry yesterday? Maybe. I love it. Right? Yes, he meant for us to cry. So he timed it just perfectly. Ba-dum-bum, right? No, right? He was having an authentic moment as he was remembering his relationship with his father and who he is and why he became what he is. And so in that moment, he did what he did, and we had our own reactions to it. For some of us, that was inspiring. For others, it was whatever it was. A guy doing what he did. So you don't actually inspire people as sort of an act. It's that you do what you do. And if people tell you that it inspires them, then it's wonderful. It reminds me of a story. Wayne Dyer tells this story. That Wayne Dyer, everybody knows Wayne Dyer, yes? Wayne Dyer has 8 children. And one of his daughters came to him and said, he asked the question, what do you want to be? She said, Dad, I want to be famous. He said, really? Well, how do you want to do that? And she said, well, I want to do this. I want to write that. I want to do this. He goes, you don't get to decide that. She said, what? He said, well, you don't get to decide if you're famous. The people who are the recipients of what you do get to decide that it touches them in such a way that it makes it matter, and then you become famous. Do what you do in such a way that you love it, and it's contagious. Do what you do in such a way that you love it, that you've touched the side of you, the inside of you, the part of you that gets you inspired, that wakes you up, that gets you in a place where you're so excited that you can't hold it any longer. And if other people want to follow, take them with you. But you can't decide, I'm just going to be famous, right? It was profound because people often say they want to be famous. Not because they know what they want to be famous for, they just want to be famous. It feels good, the idea of being famous. And the same thing around inspiration. I want to be an inspirational leader. Really? Are you inspired yourself? I say, you can't take other people to a place you haven't been yourself or don't want to go. You can't take other people to a place that you don't want to go or you've never been. Yes. All right.
Hello, is it on?
Yes, it's on now.
All right, now you've earned the right to speak.
Well, I just wanted to pick up, Reggie, on what you were saying, and also, kind of further to your question, because one of the things that I've seen and learned in my own experiences, both in volunteering and in the real world, you can be really inspired to do something, and then it's like, okay, now comes the stuff, the doing, and that's where it's like, oh man, this is like grunt work.
Yeah.
And especially when we're volunteers and doing that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that's really helpful when you're in a leadership role is to help those who are committing their time, who you are trying to inspire, is by connecting that purpose back to the, even if it's a menial task of saying, we've got to enter in your reports from your CAN interviews, or doing a mailing or sending emails out or whatever it might be. If you can tie those little tasks back to say, yeah, this is boring, this is a pain, but we've got to do it because it's those little things that make the difference from going from a great idea to actually seeing the results. So tying that back to the purpose is really important.
Yeah, because the purpose becomes, if you only had to if you just had to put in information on a information forum about anything, why would you want to do that? But if it's connected to a student who's inspired you, who wants to go to Cornell, who wants to change their life, then of course you do it. Yes.
So we've used that Daniel.
It's all right.
Maybe I shouldn't be speaking.
It's okay.
Right
You
now.
got it. You got it.
So we've used that Daniel Pink Master Your Autonomy Purpose in the workplace to motivate our leaders and dispel the myth that people are only motivated by financial reward.
Yes.
So, for example, how to motivate, professionals, the lawyers specifically. It's not just by saying do this and you'll earn a bonus, but if you have Master Your Autonomy Purpose, even in professional, that works. And so it's really interesting that you chose that to motivate a room full of volunteers.
Yes.
But that applies no matter what the context.
That's absolutely true. Yes, because we're human beings. Yes, other thoughts, comments, questions? I'm not spending enough time over here. I'm going to move here just for the...
You gotta wake this side of the room up, right?
Yeah, you don't look like... Come on. Get inspired. Yes. Way over there, okay. I'm sorry, they called me.
I think what you said about contagious is
Yes.
important because we're all very fortunate. We've gone to this great university where optimism abounds, where we feel like we can inspire and be inspired. But when you go to places where there's low morale or lack of ethics or whatever, people don't take the chances as easily.
Yes.
So what we have to do is, our purpose, is to find those problems and solve them and to act courageously. And, it's easy here. I mean, everybody here is very smart. We're all very encouraged and we love Cornell, blah, blah, blah. That's not the way it is in the real world.
Yes.
So we have to keep, perspective.
Yes, yes. But is this not the real world? Well, okay. So is this not the real world? It's a different world, okay, but it's not real? I thought for a moment I was real. They're awake, okay. Is this not the real world is the question I was asking, or do you have something else?
Yeah, no, it's on the point. It's
okay.
This is the real world, and I think that one of the things that we have to keep in mind is while we can't give purpose, right? People have to come. We can give enthusiasm, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's infectious, right?
Yes.
If you have a belief and you're inspired and you go out and you do your best, it's infectious. People want that, right? They feel it, right?
Yes.
They feel part of it. It's a team, and I think that's one of the things we have to keep in mind as as volunteer leaders, as any type of leaders, right? People are inspired by what they see, right?
Yes.
What they want to emulate it, right? And if you're inspired and you're fired up and you control what you do, everybody else does as well. Well,
Yes.
not everybody, but most people.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to, this whole sort of idea around the idea of the real world is, I don't want to leave you with the impression, hold on, here we go, little dance. I don't want to leave you with the impression that this isn't the real world, in part because if you make that distinction, you think that when you leave here that you're going to interact with something different, but the truth is that you're still in whatever world you're in, and you're still real. Pinch yourself just to make sure, but you're real. And the world that we're creating together is real. Remember, in 1865, Ezra Cornell had a vision that didn't include us because we weren't here. But we're here. And so you could argue, right, in 1865, there weren't probably, I don't know, were there this many students? But something in terms of what he created a context so that all of us could have these opportunities. And if he had thought, well, this isn't real. This is just a vision I have in a centrally isolated place. Right? I'll never be able to get people from around the world to come here. And yet, people from around the world have come. And so it's a real opportunity. We're real. The purpose we feel, the power we feel, the inspiration we feel is real. And it touches, when you're on fire, it's contagious. And it follows you wherever you go. You're real. And your passion is real. And your inspiration is real. So I want to close. Comments? Yes, you got the microphone.
Hi, Reginald. I'm Lisa Sems, class of '88, and this is our reunion year, and I am inspired. So it's so inspiring to be at CALC. So now what we have to do, it's February, is spread the love between now and June. So great ideas, thoughts, advice to spread the fire. Open to comments.
For the class of '88?
For any
For everybody,
reunion player,
okay.
For any reunion classes, how do you spread the love that we feel, the inspiration?
Yeah, you got to get yourself on the phone, on email. It's just constantly social media. I'm shocked at how many people have picked up and answered. And if I leave a message, they're calling me back for our 40th, which is coming up this June. So, and yeah, we're, all forces, and everyone you talk to, have them call their friends. It's really personal.
Well, and I think it's. Don't text. That's right. Call. Don't
Right.
text.
We did on our Facebook page. It was a little hard, but we ended up getting pictures from the time we were at Cornell, which really kind of inspired people to remember their years.
Yes.
And then the other thing is we also got, people in different affinity groups. That personal touch really recruited, and they'd kind of email me, I want a room with, and they'd put 10 people.
Mhm.
As registration chair, I would email them back and say, John, Joe, whoever, they haven't registered, and they'd call them again.
Yes.
So that it's just that very personal connection.
Yes, yes. And part of this is, if you're on fire, if you believe in what you believe in, you do what you do and you hope other people will be touched by it. As we were planning this, we came up with this phrase, inspiration contagion, right? That there is a level at which that when we're inspired, that other people become inspired. So for the class of '88 and any other class that you're part of trying to make something happen, remember to manage you first. And remember, you can't inspire other people. They can only choose to be inspired by what you do. But if you're not inspired, guess what? I'm not either. So, to close, what are your buttons? Oh, you got another button. You got an Inspire button to add to your button collection. I don't know where you're going to wear them outside of the real world, but please take your Inspire button as a reminder about the importance of being an inspiration, being inspired, using it as a context in which you work and you allow other people to work with you. Use it as an opportunity to remember Who inspires you? What inspires you? Be connected to this idea that you, in and of yourself, you are one entity, but that you can touch loads of people and that you can make a difference, that we can make the world a better place. I love the two questions, right? What are you doing to make the world a better place? And what are you doing each day to make sure you're better than you were the previous day? That's what this is all about.
Yes, I don't have the microphone, but as a member of the Volunteer Leadership and Development Task Force, how can we inspire people to fill this cell?
Yeah, so, I mean, again, there's no magic, right? The magic is in who we are. In any given moment, in any given space, the magic is in who we are and who we're being. So, thank you.
Thank you, Reginald.